I'm Adam Olson, and for my project, I decided to create a bad USB attack. Introduction. So, to kind of introduce this topic and give some background, I'm going to go ahead and answer these questions. First, what is a bad USB attack? A bad USB attack is an attack on a user's device through some sort of means, such as a piece of hardware, being a USB drive which exploits the inherent vulnerability of a user or their machine through the use of malicious firmware. In the case of these attacks, infected USB drives may be deliberately dropped or left in public for unsuspecting targets to pick up and plug into their personal devices. What kinds of USB attacks are there? To start, we have keystroke injection, where the USB, once inserted, is recognized as a keyboard, which enables keystroke input. This is typically the scariest attack, where you kind of just plug it in and it runs a little script without you really seeing anything or knowing, and it's pretty unsuspecting. So we also have USB payloads, in which the user actually needs to interact with the contents of the drive. It usually contains a file with some sort of appealing name, such as passwords or crypto or whatever they think whatever the attackers think would be appealing to the victims. Once the user interacts with this, it pretty much acts as the keystroke input. Same thing as the keystroke injection. Though these attacks can contain anything from malicious code, which compromises the user's system, hindering it no longer usable, or could be more intensive, targeting the user's data from documents to passwords, location information, and can even allow the attacker real-time control to the victim's device, which could allow them access to their camera or microphone and other devices connected to their network. So what are the implications of these attacks? These attacks can be close to harmless, where the user may get a hacked password or payment information, in which the victim can just go change their passwords or change their payment information, just be a minor inconvenience to them. Though in more serious cases, the victim could be subject to blackmail with the use of sensitive information the hacker gathered from their device, or they could even install backdoors for continued future attacks, meaning if a user is subject to an attack once, there's a good chance their device is compromised forever, and anything they do on their device is no longer a private matter. Okay, so to dive a little bit deeper into these USB attack methods, we can look into keystroke injection. So looking at USB attacks through the means of keystroke injection, we see the typical device to do this is commonly referred to as a rubber ducky. It's just a USB device and usually looks like a USB that you would find in your house. Rubber duckies are widely available for consumer purchase and are not very hard to get your hands on as long as you're willing to wait a little bit for shipping. A rubber ducky simulates keystroke injection, but how does it do this? The rubber ducky holds alphanumeric character keys, which are the number keys and the letter keys on a keyboard, but it also holds the punctuation keys. So pretty much every key on the keyboard, which is everything an attacker might need to get what they want from a device that they are attacking. Once plugged in, the rubber ducky is recognized by the victim's device as a keyboard and mass storage device. After a pause for a specified amount of time, a script is run on the victim's device, which can be as simple as pulling some of their data to something like opening a back door to have constant access to the victim's device and their information remotely. So the attacker could be in their home and the victim could be in their home on completely different networks, and the attacker has complete control and overview of the victim's information and computer. This could definitely pose issues, especially to those who store their social security, banking information, and other passwords and sensitive information on their device. So for my project, I actually decided to look into the USB payload side of a bad USB attack, as I could not get a hold of a rubber ducky or drive that could be converted. Anyways, the payloads are very similar to keystroke injection, with the slight difference of needing a user to actually interact with the contents contained within the drive they found and plugged into their device. These attacks are typically a little bit easier to defend against because you actually have to interact with the files on the drive, whereas in the keystroke attacks, you don't need to interact with those. You plug it in and it runs automatically. So to start my project, I began by researching how successful USB attacks work with payloads and just kind of looked into simple ways to gain access to a victim's device. In my case, the victim's device is a laptop running Windows 11 and the attacker device is a laptop running Kali Linux. I started with looking into information on how one might use a Linux device to access a Windows device's terminal or PowerShell remotely in order to perform a reverse shell attack. A reverse shell attack is where an attacker opens a port to the victim's device, forcing communication and enabling a complete takeover of the target machine. With this, I found different libraries on Kali Linux to perform with a couple of the more notable ones being MSF Console and Netcat. So I decided to use Netcat in order to perform this reverse shell attack. And I kind of, after I decided to use Netcat, I kind of just looked into different kinds of data that's accessible through PowerShell. So for this, I just chose something a little bit more simple, which is just getting the victim's Wi-Fi information and passwords. Experimentation. So I decided to use Netcat for my endeavors. As you know, I started by creating a USB with a payload file containing Netcat. I created the payload as a text file initially with a script, though as a text file it was pretty useless because as a text file the user or victim would just interact with it and it would open a text file. But saving it as an executable allows for the text within the file to be executed in the user's terminal when interacted with. Though this creates an issue, nobody, or at least hopefully nobody, would interact with these files because they are obviously malicious. There are just a couple files in there um, that just don't look quite right. So I went ahead and made those two files hidden, meaning you can't see them. They look like, when they're hidden, it looks exactly as it does on this image on the screen. Otherwise, you'd be able to see the two files, including the executable file. So I ended up making a shortcut, which, as you can see, is held in passwords. So once the victim interacts with passwords, it opens up my executable, and the attacker gets immediate confirmation that they are connected and have full access to the victim's bash terminal. So when the victim clicks on that passwords shortcut, this is what they see just for a brief second. Then on the attacker side, this is what they see. So I went ahead and ran a script sudo nc and just this at the top. This is my port number through which they are connecting through. And as soon as I connected, I could see that I was in their console, denoted by payload, and I went ahead and typed who am I just to make sure I was in that laptop, the victim's laptop, which I am because it is printing out the name of the victim's laptop. So with this, after getting access, I went ahead and typed in a little command to show all the passwords that their device has of the Wi-Fi's that their device has ever connected to. Next, I went ahead and typed in this little command, and I wanted the password for the Wi-Fi we see you just to kind of show it works. And as you can see, we got the password. Alright, so to conclude, bad USBs can come in different forms, but typically try and stay away from plugging in a random USB drive you find in public into your laptop, and by any means do not interact with any files contained within. Thank you.